Now, let's talk about data security. Last week, cybersecurity experts revealed that about 500 million personal data of Facebook users were breached. Well, Facebook said that massive leak of data arose from an issue in 2019, and that has since been fixed. So today we'll focus on data security and what to do to protect your personal information in the digital space. Joining us this morning are two gentlemen and a lady. Olufemi Ake is country manager ESET. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Confidence Good News is a cybersecurity expert. Thank you so much. As well as Confidence Stavley, who is a cybersecurity professional and ethical hacker. Thank you for joining us this morning. And I'm going to begin with you, Confidence, because forget the ethical. Once I hear hacker, my flags come up. So please, educate. You're laughing. I mean, once you hear hacker, the first thing that comes to your mind is they have come. So who is that for? I'm sure you must have done this for the umpteenth time. Let someone understand. Who is an ethical hacker? A hacker who is ethical? I don't understand.
Yeah, okay, so an ethical hacker is someone who is invited by organizations and authorized to try to find vulnerabilities or loopholes that the bad guys can exploit to gain access to unauthorized access to information or data, just like we've seen in the case of Facebook. So the bad guys are the ones who exploit these loopholes and gain unauthorized access, while ethical hackers like myself gain access but authorize this time and find those loopholes so the organization they are working for can plug the loopholes before the bad guys find them. So it's literally having somebody else test your house lock before somebody else can come in with an equipment and open the door while you're away and steal your stuff. So that's literally the job of an ethical hacker. So think of us as the good guys, wearing the white hats as against the bad guys wearing the black hats that do bad things.
What if this white hat hacker suddenly crosses carpet? Do you understand what I mean?
Well, that's a possibility, but then there are ethics that we sign up to. So, for example, you could say that about your medical doctor as well. What if your doctor chooses, while operating your appendix, to cut it all off and cut other organs as well that really service your body? But then there is the trust element that while you're sitting on his table, he's going to cut what just needs to keep you alive and healthy. So literally that's where that's how these things happen, because we literally use the same tools, just that we use them ethically, and every action we take is authorized by the client before we do them, and then every finding we have is then reported in an actionable way to the client in a way that the client can then fix, or the employer at the time can fix it and make sure that the bad guys do not exploit them for negative reasons.
Let me stay with you for a tiny bit longer. So what then is the vulnerability that exposed an organization like Facebook to lose 500 million personal data of its users? To what extent is that vulnerability weak that could happen?
So vulnerabilities are for lack of being very religious, vulnerabilities are like sin. There is no one too small. As long as it is available, it serves like a loophole. It's just a little hole that can be exploited and gain access into any enterprise. I mean, an opportunity. An institution like Facebook is highly targeted because for many reasons it It's very popular. It has a huge user base. It collects information that attackers find very valuable. So it's a treasure trove for attackers, and so they receive very huge amounts of attacks every single day. And I'm sure because of that, they also try to always be on top of their game, security speaking. However, the kind of vulnerability that was leveraged here, Facebook says, is around their address book. So it's an address book scraping tool that the vulnerability existed on, and then these hackers had access to a percentage. Believe you me, $500 million is not up to the full amount. It's not up to the number of active users Facebook have in a month. I think Facebook currently has 2.5 billion active users. So this is still a percentage of their active users for a month. So yes, this was what was exploited, according to what Facebook reports, that it was the address book vulnerability that was exploited to scrape this data.
So Chibike, sometimes, well, she said that it was the address book vulnerability that was exploited by the hackers, non-ethical hackers, if I can add. Is that something that was done, a vulnerability created by the user?
The user has no input or a way to control that.
Okay.
So a user on Facebook, in order to access the services of Facebook, provided those both primary data and those things that he used to access it. Now, it was the function of Facebook to safeguard those things. And the vulnerability that we're talking about here, it's a scraping service that was done on Facebook address database. So the user doesn't know anything about it. The user cannot be more secured, or cannot be too careful to even protect himself at that point, because you've given yourself to your data to a platform, and the compromise didn't happen from your device. It didn't happen as a result of a negligence. It didn't happen as a result of the exploitation by the user, but on the part of the platform itself. So the user had nothing to do with that.
533 million Facebook users at one go, and one wonders, Mr. K, if there was anything that could have been done to prevent that. I mean, expectedly, one would think that if it's going to happen, not with an organization like Facebook. I mean, Facebook is, with all that we have heard and seen over the years, Facebook is perhaps one of the most security conscious organizations, in the world. And now this, is this something that you think could jeopardize Facebook in a way that subscribers can begin to call their data away?
Well, to be honest with you, it's security is only as good as your weakest link. That's the general term. So you can't be too careful. You can't be 100% perfect with your cybersecurity. So even we as security solutions provider, we promise 99.9% security. So Facebook on this issue, to be honest, they were warned several times about securing this storage, this cloud storage, where the information was actually picked from, right? So they were warned several times as to the fact that this server was not protected. So
in what way? Protected in what way, and warned by who?
So protected by several means, by password protection, encryption protection, so you communicate on your WhatsApp day in, day out, and then you get pop-ups as to the information you're communicating is encrypted, right? So encryption, end-to-end encryption, means that the person from the other side can't see the information that you're passing through to another person if they're not the ones that you're passing the information to, okay, right? So even if they get hacked, there's less tendency for a third party to access the data. They're also being regulated. I believe in the US, there's a Federal Trade Commission Act that enforces third-party security. Same thing in Nigeria. We have a National Data Protection Regulation, which is supposed to ensure that any organization that has 200 or more data of third party should keep the levels of security so high that it can't be breached. So you have solutions like two-factor authentication that checks to ensure that whoever is gaining access into the server is the real person. So you get your password, you get the password to the server. You still have to also provide a one-time password that can never be known by any other person or even you at the time that you're generating it. So it can only be known by you. Encryption, I said, also could also be put in place that if the data is even leaked, the third-party hackers, non-ethical hackers, like you said, would not be able to access or read the data. So it would just be useless. They would have the tons of data. I think it's about 146 gig of data that was hacked. That was collected, and this is unprotected anyway. So it's not even a case of being hacked. They didn't do so much to gain access to the data. That's what UpGuard actually reported. They're the cybersecurity firm that discovered this, right? And it's not just this case alone. It's about 2 cases within the last few weeks that was reported. The other one was, it's all about Facebook integrated applications. These applications that plug into Facebook, collect data, and all of this. There's another one called At the Pool. They are a Facebook integrated application provider that collects information, and about 22,000 user data was leaked. This data was containing email addresses, passwords of users, and things like that. So it's very tough for users to trust, a big data collector because they've not put some measures in place.
Well, Confidence, let me come back to you on this issue. Is this then beginning to put a question mark on how much information the subscriber on any online platform puts online? Because on the one hand, everyone is saying, let's go digital, let's go online, do everything as much as you can online. So which will require you putting a lot of your personal information into the digital space. On the other hand, are these vulnerabilities that are unexpected and sometimes unavoidable. So where do we draw the balance here?
I definitely agree with you on not putting up too much information. I mean, it's, as a rule of thumb, we say that when you're filling out a form online, you should give information, the absolute minimum information that's required to carry out that task. So, for example, if you're filling out a form online, only fill out the fields in the form that are mandatory, the ones that are marked with an X. And that's a rule of thumb that we always share with people. Another one that would always say to people is with phone numbers, for example, that wherever you're asked to use a phone number, if the phone number can be taken off later, by all means take it off. Because that's now like, your phone number is now like an ID of some sorts that you use around the place. It's no more just the way that people communicate with you. With your phone number alone, someone can gain access, unauthorized access to most of your online accounts, because your phone number most times is used to verify that you're actually the owner of that account. Your phone number is also used to reset your passwords. So you see, our phone numbers have become way more important. I mean, a few months ago, a video was trending about a guy that could gain access to people's bank accounts using their SIM cards. And what was he using? He was just using phone numbers. Again, another tool. So our phone numbers have become very important. Please treat it like that as well. And make sure that when you fill out forms online, that you don't share too much information. You take precaution, and also in your own little space, while this has happened with the big provider of the communication platform you're using, it's important that you also be on high alert, turn on two-factor authentication on your Facebook account, on your WhatsApp account, and on every account that's linked to that phone number. Also ensure that you're on alert, because scammers will begin to call you at this point. I've had a lot of incidences already since that breach, or rather the data was exposed on the dark web. So be on high alert right now, and know that you also have a role to play to protect whatever is left of your own privacy right now and your data at the moment.
Well, not to talk of the money end is actually something that's a little troubling. All of my every bank you use is asking for a phone number, and to get that phone number, it's so easy to wipe your account. So Facebook would seem like a microcosm right now, because this same vulnerability we have heard about some banks within the country as well. So in that regard, you are expected to input a phone number on your bank account. You use that as the only means of getting some electronic things done, you know, on your account. So how do people then protect themselves? Because we have also heard some people going in the back door, you know, to ethical hackers like you also tell us of some the vulnerabilities of certain banks in the country as well. What do we do? What can the subscriber do?
Okay, so I want to put it out there that there are some vulnerabilities as a user that you can do nothing about. In those situations, be rest assured that because you can't do anything about it, you can definitely take it up with the provider if anything goes wrong. So I'll give an example. If you suffer a SIM swap attack where you didn't give anybody access to the physical SIM card, you didn't also divulge any information that is confidential or sensitive over the phone to anybody. What that means is that someone from either the telco side of things has colluded with someone in another part, that's one of your service provider, or one has actually had an insider do that inside job. So which of course you on your own can't stop. At that stage, we've seen some cases where some service providers have been taken to court, and those people have been compensated out of court because the service provider took ownership, because that was clearly an insider attack. So there are things called an insider attack where somebody within the organization actually puts your customer or puts the person you've collected data from in a place that their information is compromised, and then they lose money. So however, at that stage, you have nothing to do. But if you have a role to play, for example, you've divulged your information, then you have a liability, and that's where the service provider have nothing to do with you. The second one is you should also take precaution in the sense of, for example, your SIM card, make sure that you have a SIM lock enabled on your phone, and make sure your phone has a lock. So that SIM lock, for example, make sure that even if your phone is stolen and your SIM card is removed from your phone and put into any other phone, they will not be able to access data on it. Also, the service providers have provided some sort of incident response plan. I call it a technical term because I want to start from there. So the incident response plan, it sort of details what you can do if an incident happens. So, for example, your phone is stolen. So, what do you do to protect yourself? You need to, as a subscriber or as a customer, learn what you need to do. That information is out there. I have personally put out that information. So if you're a bank customer, your phone is stolen, there are short codes you can dial from any phone available and immediately block your account. It is also your responsibility to know this and be able to take action quickly before the bad guys do. So you see, we are not exactly left helpless. But if in a situation where you have no hand in that, you can definitely take it up legally and you'll be compensated.
Mr. Good News, you wanted to add a word or two to what you heard Confidence talk about?
Yes, I was going to say that as long as you use digital platforms, as long as you use social media and you use the internet and mobile phones, you have information that have been dropped in different places, and those information collectively make you. So if you didn't drop your phone number in platform A, you probably dropped it in platform B. If you didn't drop your address in one platform, you probably dropped it in another platform. And a smart hacker just needs to harvest the information from 3 different platforms and then analyze them and put them together to form a persona, which is usually the accurate information of who that person is. But what users need to be careful about is know the primary target of those hackers. Now, the key things they want to get is, they want to get access to your bank account, to hid the money in there. they want to impersonate you to use and collect money from your associates or contacts, or they want to impersonate you in one way or the other. So we should guide especially those aspects. And also we need to hold the platforms where we've given our data accountable, but the level of accountability, it's a lot to be said, just like we see the breach here. But where there is a transaction that you don't know, or a transaction that happens on your account, you should act quickly to protect that, because you don't know how fast or how advanced the hackers get, because the advancement increases by the day. And also, people should always change passwords as frequent as possible. So there are incidents that somebody creates another Facebook account that looks like your own with all your details, and then sends information to your contacts and associates that you are participating in a scheme, and the scheme has been paying thousands and thousands of naira, hundreds of thousands, and asking them to join. Some people will trust you because they have confidence that, okay, if Chibuike is doing this thing, that means that thing is legit. And not knowing that it's hackers that have impersonated you and then use that. And they even go to the point of having screenshots of alerts that have been sent to the person, meaning that that person has received payment. And in the process, you see vulnerable people jump into that. So as users, we also need to take note and watch those primary points so that these hackers don't use that to hit us.
Let me add to what you have said and advise, the viewer right now, because there are times when a particular application will say, link this app to this one, link this app to this one, link your Facebook to your Twitter to your Instagram to your all-in-one. Now you're laughing. It's funny, right?
No, it's one thing. Users are lazy. That's where that thing comes from. Now, you've provided your primary information to Google, and Google becomes your primary login details to so many applications in your phone, because you don't want to be putting your phone number, your email address, and a password to that. And for an average person, you probably have about 50 applications on your phone, and all of them are asking for unique passwords. And are you going to remember 50 passwords? That's where that thing comes from. And so they simply say, okay, use your Google account to log into that. So it boils down to the security the platforms are providing. The security that the platform that become the primary access are provided. For your mobile phone, especially your Android phone, Google is an account on it. So if you have a Google account, it becomes your primary account that you use for all the apps on the Play Store and that. So if that is compromised, then it's also every other thing is going to be compromised. So asking people to use this account to connect to this, you need to be careful. Where is the primary one you are using to connect? Is it the one that can be compromised? So many apps will ask you to, if you have an account with this account, if you have an account with this platform, so just join them together. But make sure that that primary one you're using to join together is not one that can be compromised.
He's correct. We're lazy. I mean, who wants to remember 50 passwords?
Very true.
So you are a security solution provider, so...
Okay, so I'm just going to give some analogy here, right? So you have, we have banks all over the world, right? And then you have your home, you have secured areas in your home, right? But we still depend on the banks to keep some information like a will, trinkets, gold, some very valuable things that we don't feel comfortable keeping in our homes, secured areas of our homes. Yeah. So we depend on the banks. And the banks are meant to keep these things in the vault, right? So imagine the banks not securing these vaults. What happens? People walk in, pick your gold, and you would not naturally depend on the banks to secure your valuables anymore. So I would say that the people, the users that we term as lazy, right, are the homeowners with secure areas, right? But because of the fact that we believe that the banks would secure our valuables and keep in the vaults with several combinations to, keep them secure. We entrust them. That's the case with, applications. That's the case with Facebook, LinkedIn. Yesterday, there was a story on the internet about LinkedIn losing 500 million, million user data containing phone numbers, email addresses, workplace information. So you can imagine that. Imagine 1 in 2 users of LinkedIn have their information with the bad guys. So LinkedIn would ask you for your phone number. So would you say you wouldn't give your phone number? Because some of these applications will not operate, will not run effectively if you don't give those details, right? So you've provided the details and you have to entrust these application providers to keep them secure. So what happens, and that is where accountability comes in.
On the part of the platform.
On the part of the platform providers. And then that is
in
where...
the event, just a moment, because we are winding down. In the event that they're not unable to do what they ought to do, what can we do to protect ourselves?
So regulations, right? Regulation kicks in. So in Nigeria, we've got Nigeria Data Protection Regulation, Gdpr, which is supposed to enforce the data handlers, the data keepers, to enforce them to keep our data secure. We have these regulations. In Europe, it's GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. In the United States, it's Federal Trade Commission Act.
And the California Act.
Yeah. So, and United States has different federal level, state level act that is meant to enforce this. So the enforcement, if you read the NDPR for Nigeria, for example, it discusses areas where consumer can actually take up any data handler that misuse your data. So illegally and legally, they might have protected it, but unfortunately, if they get hacked, your data is exposed. So we buy plane tickets, we buy several things that require that we fill in our details online. No matter how you want to be careful in providing some information are also vital that you have to provide to get things going on a day-to-day basis. Okay. So that is where the accountability comes in, and then the regulation. So if we have the regulators enforce these companies to make sure that they use the right security solutions to protect third-party data, yeah, we're getting there. Okay. Right? And then if the users that are affected also take up these cases, take them to court, sue them for tons of monies and all, then they sit tight. They begin to sit tight and ensure that the data that we entrust them to secure is properly secured and protected.
I wish we could take this further, because I was hoping to ask you questions about, the exposure of some data, NIN data on the dark web, people selling their digital information and all of that, but we are completely out of time now.
There's a lot to be done in Nigeria.
Most certainly.
A lot to be done
most certainly. Most certainly. I have to thank you all for being a part of this conversation this morning. Confidence Stavely is a cybersecurity professional and ethical hacker. She joined us virtually from Lekki. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Confidence. Mr. Chibuike Good News is a cybersecurity expert. Thank you so much for your time. As well as Olufemi Ake, who is country manager, ESET. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
for being here this morning.